One preliminary question may be raised by some as to what exactly children denotes and how they are different from ordinary children when true disciples are seen in such a way. Has Baba got ordinary children and again spiritual children? It looks somewhat a crude notion to have children for whom you have no responsibility. Of all persons, Baba will be the last to avoid responsibility for children. Baba recognized that devotees in general were his children, and he also affirmed his determination to protect them. Baba once said, "You devotees are my children. I am your father. You have to get everything from me. You should not say like that." This was addressed to Narki's friends who went and complained to Baba that Narki was saying that Baba was a man. Baba was pointing out that those devotees who were relying upon him entirely for all their benefits were getting those benefits merely because they were feeling that they were children of Baba, and that his responsibility was there in respect of those who felt that they were his children. Baba may create the feeling, no doubt, but one must begin with some sort of rudimentary feeling at least that he is Baba's child, a true disciple, and begin to make efforts to love him as the father and provider. Therefore, we may say that as a rule, normal children who feel that they are children and look to their father for help and provision do get such help and provision. And in the spiritual field, those who feel that they are children of Baba, especially by total surrender to him of all their interests and activities, time, trouble, and wealth, are especially his children. Therefore, it will be clearly and aptly to put to such people, and is explained where Baba says, "If anyone casts his burden on me and thinks of me, I looked after all his concerns." Here is the undertaking of the responsibility of looking after all the concerns of the devotee, and the condition of it is that the devotee should cast all his burdens on Baba and think of Baba all the while as the provider. And Baba says, "Look to me and I look to you. Trust in the Guru fully. If one devotes his entire mind to me and rests in me, he need fear nothing for body and soul. If one sees me and me alone and listens to talk about me and is devoted to me alone, he will reach God." This is the modern paraphrase of what Sri Krishna said. Complete responsibility is undertaken by Sri Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita in respect of anyone who treats Sri Krishna as a true guru, that is, the be-all and end-all of his existence, and who turns his mind and worship, observances, and prostrations all over to Krishna. Sai, as Krishna in the 20th century, gave the above as his way of announcing the same fact. Baba says, "Repeat my name, seek refuge in me." As it states in the Gita, if one thinks of me and me alone, and resorts to me completely, and is ever attached to me, I look after his interest in obtaining and securing benefits. This is the same as Baba's undertaking. Now, so far we have referred to the declaration of Krishna and the Kali Yuga Sai, showing that where there is a divine protection offered to any person, and it is accepted, then as Narayan says in his song, the devotee becomes Ankita, that is, a true child, that the entire responsibility for him is undertaken by the Guru. It is quite obvious that if any person feels that he is a child of Baba and he has sufficiently surrendered and is making every endeavor to make the surrender complete, Baba comes forward to undertake all his burdens, and that makes the devotee his true child. For all practical purposes, a real devotee surrenders himself and tries his utmost to surrender himself will surely be Baba's child. That is a person for whom Sri Krishna will bear responsibilities as well, because Sai and Krishna are one. These declarations of undertaking were in the Gita already before Baba appeared in the flesh, but how few came forward to surrender and ask for the undertaking to be fulfilled by Sri Krishna. This is a great defect in humanity. What is freely proffered is not appreciated. Faith is not vigorously forthcoming at the time it ought to be forthcoming. The consequence of lack of faith is that there is no readiness to take up the position of a child or devotee to surrender oneself, and to await with confidence the performance of the promises made in the Bhagavad Gita and the Gospel of Sai. As pointed out in the Chandogya Upanishad, prayers, in order to be effective, must be believed in. When you pray for any object, believe that you are getting it. That is the surest way of getting it. If you are really a surrendered child, you will feel that the parent is there ready to confer it. Numerous previous experiences would strengthen that belief. This is really as it ought to be. Unfortunately, what ought to be is not always the fact. People do not surrender, do not believe that they are getting benefits, and consequently there are few cases reported of true children of Krishna. But when the season comes, belief comes, and there is a large number of surrendering and believing persons. The lack of faith that is prevalent even after hundreds of cases of superhuman, miraculous aid being given by Baba to his children is something astonishing. Of course, there are parallels. We find one example in what Sri Ramakrishna Paramahansa quotes, that is the story of belief in the efficacy of Ganges water to wash away sin. As it states, Ganges water destroys sin. This has been repeated millions of times, and yet how many people believe in it? That is illustrated by the following account. Shiva, wanting to show Parvati how little people had belief, told her to take the form of a very old lady and to sit on the banks of the Ganges. He himself took the form of a very old husband of hers, just now dead or dying. Parvati was crying out to all the people who gathered round that her misfortune was making her a widow, but that some great wise man had said, "Your husband will have a sudden death, but if somebody that is sinless puts in a drop of Ganges water into his mouth, he will revive." So the lady cried out and asked the crowd of people who had been taking baths in the Ganges, "Is there no one who is sinless and who will put a drop of water in my husband's mouth?" No one was forthcoming. Each man was fully conscious of his sins and could not believe that the Ganges bath he had absolved him of his sins. One young man came up and said, "Mother, wait. I am a sinner, but I shall have a dip in the Ganges. My sins being absolved, I will come with a drop of Ganges water and revive your husband." And as he had the faith, his bath and the water he brought revived her husband. This shows how rare is faith in the purification potency of Ganges amongst vast masses of Hindus. Even the praise of Ganges is sung by almost every Hindu and is known to every Hindu as washing away all sins. Just known, but not accepted with powerful faith. Development of faith. Development of faith is a very large question, and if one arranges all the facts known to him, that is, after careful observation, he would notice first and foremost that faith develops where necessity makes one develop it. If it is to my interest to believe that a certain prayer will save me, I begin to believe in the efficacy of that prayer. If somebody thinks that some practice is harmful, whether it is really harmful or not, he will certainly avoid that, as he thinks that his interest is imperiled thereby. This is a far-reaching principle and may be very largely utilized by those who make arrangements for the development of faith amongst large classes that approach them. Just as success begets success, faith begets faith. In order to develop faith in the Guru must show himself to be expecting faith and deserving of faith. No faith will be placed in a person with patent defects, who is loose in his expressions, who is otherwise unworthy of trust or confidence. If a guru commits such mistakes, faith is not likely to develop towards him. If, on the other hand, the guru shows himself ready to do everything that a powerful guru should do, and actually demonstrates his ability to do what faith expects and demands, then faith is readily placed in him. This is mainly the method by which faith in Baba has spread and is spreading now. We shall give one illustration. A propagandist went to a place near Vellore, and after his delivering an enthusiastic lecture about Sai's greatness, his wonderful powers of cure, and his uniform kindness to the poor, the wretched, the high class and the low class, at the close of the lecture, faith had been aroused in some of the audience. One of them brought a young child of 10 months and said that for 8 months that child was having fits, and God alone knew how it was to survive. Then suddenly the lecturer had the inspiration or the idea that in the name of Baba he should take some sacred ash and apply it to the child and say, "Henceforward, no fit should attack this child." And this was done. This was a prayer and an assertion. He returned from the village, and it was noticed that the child was really free from such attacks thereafter. Therefore, the whole village began to believe in Sai Baba. In a similar way, where an educational officer's wife had hysterical fits and requested the propagandist to go and give her Sai Baba's blessings, the lecturer took up a picture of Sai Baba, made a very brief worship, and offered it to Baba's picture, and offered it to the patient, telling her that she was Sai's child, that Sai was all-powerful, and that he could keep at bay any hysterical or other attack, whatever may be the source of the attack, and then he returned. So long as that lady remained in that place, she had no recurrence of hysterical fits. This naturally roused faith in a large number of people all around. These are very common instances, and in fact it is such instances that partly explain how Sai Baba, who was not known outside the Maharashtra 20 years ago, is now known throughout the length and breadth of India. Coming to practical steps, if anyone should ask, what is the actual step I am to take in order to develop faith enough to become Baba's true child? The first answer is, remove all influences adverse to faith. For instance, association with scoffers, with flippant persons, with violent and wicked persons should be avoided. Close association with highly respectable and eminent philosophers and thinkers who complacently declare they have no faith in Sai or in Rama is dangerous. Pride in being a philosopher or someone who doubts all things. The opposite of it, namely the company of sadhus or ordinary believers in Sai, should be sought. Gatherings of bhaktas, either for bhajan or worship, or study or lecture, should all be attended as far as possible. There is one supreme rule. Repetition strengthens every habit, and faith is a mental habit. If, for example, at the beginning I have no faith in Sai Baba's doing something that is prayed for, then I must force myself to have that faith on the first one occasion, next the second, and the third, and so on. If I profess or compel myself to have faith often, say dozens of times, faith will become a habit with me. The habit, I will believe that Sai will help even me, is good. He always helps the poor and wretched, even the scoffing. Here one is taught an important psychological law. People despise external observances, thinking that they are excrescences in religion, and that it is only the spirit or essentials that are wanted. But this is ignoring one very important fact. The external and the internal are closely associated. You hardly ever get the internal without an external. For instance, if I want nectar or coffee, there must be a cup or vessel carrying it to me. Words and meanings appear to be external and internal, yet they are embedded in each other. Above all, the association of the external and internal operates in a very powerful way, unseen and unnoticed. Let us take hypnotized subjects and sleeping or dreaming subjects as best instances for exemplifying the working of this law, that the external and the internal have a very close connection, and that the one draws the other with it. A person is hypnotized, and though nothing at all is said to him, his body is arranged in a pugilistic fashion, with his fists stretched out ready for fighting, and himself ready to deliver and receive attacks. Though nothing is said, the man, if asked to speak, speaks fiercely and in a mood of attack. He is bellicose. Similarly, if a hypnotized patient is made to kneel down or fully prostrate, and his palms are arranged in a certain fashion, that is, invoking the grace of God, then though nothing is said, the man at once becomes humble and prayerful in mood. If asked, "What is this?" he would say, "I am praying to God." It is the attitude of prostration and invocation that brings on the ideas of invoking God. These may be multiplied ad infinitum, but the present instances will suffice to show that the external and the internal have a very close association, and anyone who is anxious to develop his faith should see that in himself, in his surroundings and library and company, and in everything around him. The externals are always suggestive or productive of faith. Above all, the mind must be directed to faith. And how is that done? The company that we keep, both physically and our reading, intellectual company, and practical details of puja and prayer, acts of service and preaching, as well as meditation and yogic concentration, and above all, a steady habit of prayer for the growth of one's faith and of others that one is interested in. These will work wonders. Faith is a cultivable plant and requires proper selection of field, seed, manure, and irrigation. One can develop this subject at great length. Suffice it to say that those who are desirous of developing faith in Sai Baba, to become his true child, a real devotee, should begin with an ardent desire to become such, to repeat that resolve to themselves time and again, and they should make use of every opportunity that advances their eligibility for becoming his true child. And above all, the extent to which they are prepared to make sacrifices to please Baba, so that he may adopt them as his children, will be very important. Make reverent worship and daily study of the Gospel of Baba. That will change even a stony heart.